Oh,
Hi.
hi Mary. Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Hello everybody. This is Dr. Steve Horowitz, and we have with us today the lovely Danielle Leslie, who will be assisting me in demonstrating how to use active listening effectively in a formal setting such as the workplace. Today we'll be looking at Mary Young, played by Danny. And Mary Young is a bank teller who spent 7 years at the Pleasantville National Bank. And Mary is the winner of numerous Employee of the Month and Employee of the Year awards and volunteers for all types of charity events on behalf of the bank. She's also taking care of her ailing family and her mom in particular, of which I'm not aware. And the issue we're going to be looking at today is a somewhat typical issue for organizations, and that of a policy, or a policy in violation, if you will. Today we'll look at a situation involving Mary and her use of cell phones during company time. Now, you may be familiar with this kind of a situation. And as Mary's supervisor, it's my role to communicate with Mary as I've observed this. And the only issue is, how effective will I be in that communication? In order to do this properly, we have to recall the cardinal rule of every communication interaction. And that is, regardless of the issue, how sensitive or even negative it might be, we must conclude the conversation by maintaining a positive relationship. So let's have an example of what a conversation might look like by a communicator who is not knowledgeable about communication, hasn't learned a lot about emotional intelligence, hasn't been thinking much about cultural programming, and basically is ineffective. That conversation might look something like this. Mary, appreciate your coming in today. I'm here to discuss a violation of a very important policy that the Pleasantville Bank has. That policy involves the use of cell phones and communication while on company time. And while I can appreciate your situation and your awards that you've won, I just can't have that kind of behavior in the workplace. It's insulting to our customers, we lose business, and I just can't have it. So it's got to end today.
I have to say, I'm going through something really personal. I don't appreciate you
Mary,
attacking me about my phone call use.
All of us have personal issues to attend to.
Have you had to care for an ailing parent? That's what I'm going through right now.
Well, we're not here to really talk about your parents, or I should say my parents.
I can't believe this.
But Mary, you're an employee. We have rules and regulations.
That's fine, but my mom comes first, and if she's going through something,
we'll cut it right there. Boy, was that terrific acting by Danielle. Because let me tell you, if I were Danielle, I'd have already been out of my chair and strangling myself. To her credit, Mary wouldn't tolerate that kind of interaction by her supervisor, nor should she. So that was an example of everything you could possibly do that was inappropriate. But let me ask, from a communication point of view, Mary, did you understand the communication? What message was I trying to communicate?
I understood that regardless of the situation, there's a very strict cell phone policy, and I can't use it while I'm with a customer.
Okay, so the communication was clear. Did you understand the vocabulary I used?
Yes.
Were there any idioms or phrases or jargon you did not understand?
No.
No, so I communicated the message clearly. So what's the problem? You guessed it. Maintaining a positive relationship. Let's ask Mary just what the impact of that technique was. So how did you feel about the way I communicated that information to you, Mary?
I felt attacked and like you were very insensitive. And really, at the end of it, I was pissed off at you.
Well, and that's a version of something that can lead to a phrase that I've coined called minimum daily requirement, which basically means if you treat an employee the way I just demonstrated, you can likely count on that employee not only not volunteering at your next car wash or other charity event, but performing what I call minimum daily requirement, meaning she'll do just enough to keep her job, and that's it. At worst, she's likely to become antagonistic and even sabotage your operation. So, having said that, let's have that conversation again, except this time, hopefully by a supervisor who has some knowledge of communication, knows about active listening and cultural programming, and most of all, knows how to maintain a positive relationship regardless of the situation. Mary,
Hi.
thanks for coming in.
No problem.
Hey Mary, I just wanted to thank you again for your taking the lead in so many of the charity events that the bank has been holding this throughout the year. You've done a terrific job.
Thank you.
And I think because employees like you, top employees committed to the bank, that we've gained a reputation in the community for being just that, the bank that cares. And one of the reasons we've gotten that reputation was we've all come together and openly communicated what we call guidelines for how we would work together in order to optimize our performances. And I believe you were chairing one of those committees. And I wanted to share with you one of the guidelines that as a supervisor I'm responsible for communicating as I observe our operation. It appeared over the last week or so that you had been maybe on your cell phone a bit more than I'd expected or we'd agreed to, and on occasion were away from your teller station. And in fact, I even got a call from a customer indicating the service wasn't quite what they were used to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I appreciate your response. I can see already that that's not something you're comfortable with.
It's really hard for me because I am going through something personal, and the customers have no idea, you have no idea, but that's the reason I've been on my phone, is my mom is sick. So I don't know what you expect me to do.
You know what, it's interesting because it sounds as if I understand what you're saying, and you're right, I was not aware of the seriousness of the situation, and I certainly want to first ask, how is your mom doing?
She's okay. She's unstable. It's been a rough couple of weeks.
See, it has, and I can understand where you may have some feelings that are tense.
Yeah, I can't believe the customer told on me.
It can happen, yes, that did happen, and normally that wouldn't, but as you're indicating, it's an unusual situation for you if I hear you correctly.
Yes.
And in addition, what tends to happen occasionally, if something like that takes place, someone else has to kind of fill in, and then they're left with a vacancy where they are, and so on and so forth. And it sounds like you can appreciate how that would affect our customer service. And incidentally, is there anyone else in the family who is helping to care for your mom at this point?
No, it's all on me. I'm the oldest child, and everything is all on me.
Wow, it sounds like that can be quite daunting when you have to pay attention to work. And
It's
yet
really stressful, and I don't need stress from you or from work.
Yeah, and I do hear that. So you may be feeling even now that this communication itself is either unwarranted or is producing even more stress for you. Would that be accurate?
Yes, exactly.
I just wanted to make sure that I got a good sense of how you're feeling about this. And yet, I did want to share with you, and now of course I know a little bit more about your situation. I also know that it's the burden has fallen to you, and that you have feelings that are somewhat tense and maybe affecting even your relationship, even toward me. And I might ask, is it affecting any other employee relationships you're having?
Well, yeah, I think I heard them talking about me the other day because I was away from my station and they had to cover for me. And
can you tell me more about how you felt about that?
I mean, it was insulting just because I've covered for them before.
Sure.
I've been a great part of this team, and for the one time that I'm not on top of everything because of what's going on, they're going to talk about me behind my back. Like, I was
So it sounds, if I may, as if you're kind of indicating there's an unfairness to how maybe employees have not taken your situation into consideration, and that you've always covered for them, and so on and so forth. I think I've got the picture. So I think what I'd like to ask you now then is, knowing we have two things going on here. We've got our bank and our operation, and how to optimize our customer service, and you've got a personal issue going on at the same time. So I think I'd like to ask you for some options that you might have, and we don't have to answer all of these today, but just to gain from you some sense of how you might have been thinking about how to make all of it work.
Well, I actually have been thinking about taking some time off. Maybe a couple of weeks, so that her condition can stabilize, and that way when I'm here, I am 100% focused.
Right.
I would say that would be something good. Another option might be breaking up my lunch. Like instead of my hour lunch, maybe I could do 30 minutes, and then the other 30 minutes break up into breaks throughout the day, so I can call and check up on her.
So some quick ideas, again, just off the top of the head, might be something about staggering your break time and not having it be in one chunk, in case your mom does and you can't predict it. Call at any time. Let me just go ahead and jot one or two of these down, because they're important and I don't want to forget them. And I'll be thinking of some at the same time myself. I'll check with our policy and see what we can do within our guidelines, and see if together we can come up with an innovative or an option that works for both of us. I certainly don't want you to not be able to attend to a mom. That's everybody's priority. So with that, let's just both think about it a little bit more. And then what if we come back in a couple of days, few days, and you'll have ideas and I'll have ideas, and we'll continue to work on a solution.
I appreciate that.
Really a pleasure. Hey,
Thank
thanks
you
a
so
lot
much.
for coming in. And good luck with Mom. Tell her I said hello when you see her next.
Thank you, I will.
Thank you. Well, and there you have it. We have communicator number 1 and communicator number 2. Now, why don't we go to the source and ask Mary which of these two communications she preferred, obviously, but more importantly, why. Mary, what was it about that second communication that I'm going to assume you found much more appealing? What was it about it that made you feel a bit better than the first one?
Well, it was a two-way conversation, so you were listening and considering my personal situation and how that was affecting my performance.
Hey, by the way, how did you really know that I was listening?
You asked clarifying questions and kind of paraphrased what I was saying and asked me to verify that that was correct.
Because you do know I could have just been nodding my head and thinking of what I'm going to do on the weekend.
Right, exactly.
So you did have evidence. Yes. What about our relationship, contrasting the first one and the second one? How do you think, even though I had to raise an issue that might not have been comfortable about performance, how did that conversation end in terms of your feeling about me and our relationship?
Well, in the first situation, I was pissed off and I didn't care about performing well. But in this situation, I actually wanted to improve my performance and think twice about taking phone calls and stepping away from the customer.
So clearly, my approach or my technique or my style made a significant difference in your feeling about me and our continued ability to work together. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for sharing that with me and our audience. And let's just summarize just a little bit about what you did observe and what was significant to remember. Probably the most important thing was having in the back of your mind, this is a valuable employee and you must maintain a positive relationship. Secondly, one of the ways you can do that is through this newly acquired skill called active listening. And you noticed even my physical presence tended to be a little bit closer, more eye contact, a lot of nodding and body language that would have indicated to the other person that you were in fact attentive. Secondly, this concept of listening without interrupting, and then summarizing periodically what points you thought the receiver were making. And you want to do that because, in fact, you may not have heard the comments correctly, and that invites the receiver to clarify what you might not have heard. Also, the use of clarifying questions allowed me to probe deeper and give me a fuller understanding of what the overall situation was. And finally, to allow the other individual to propose some options that may be helpful. And options that are proposed by the other person are usually going to be more valuable in the long run. So with that, I invite you to perform some of the activities you'll have to practice this kind of communication, and I look forward to hearing the responses that you get in your new skill of active listening, the key to interpersonal communication and relationship building.